Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Need Movies. This is my top 10 of 2016 list. I really wish I could get a better studio here. There are so many films that could have made this list. There are so many that I missed, didn't get a chance to see yet, whether it be time constraints or lack of money to go see an $18 movie. And I love going to the movie theaters, so that really sucks. Of the many I've seen, here we are. These are my top 10, and I want to quickly say that these top 10 are films that I'm going to add to my Blu-ray collection. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but to me, when I spent years paring down my collection with movies I don't really care about anymore or don't need to have on DVD, I used to be like an obsessive person with this, like Brandon, don't tell him. So I only have a few movies. I only have like the best of the best in my mind. So what my favorite movies. Whereas these 10 will definitely make that list. That's not even true of the last year's 2015 top 15 we did. So I'm really excited about these films, and I really think that where the order could switch as I reflect on these films or rewatch some of them, at this time, this is my top 10. Number 10 is The Nice Guys. I didn't think I'd like this movie as much as I did. It looked like a fun throwaway film. I mean, Shane Black has done buddy cop comedies almost since I've been born. I mean, 1987, Lethal Weapon, The Last Boy Scout in 1991, and then, of course, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where he wrote and directed that film. Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling have such great chemistry together. I can't even believe it. It doesn't make any sense, but it's so well done. It's so fun. Even the child, Shane Black's known for having a lot of children in his films, and that could be kind of frustrating for some, and she has her moments, but for the most part, she's a great actress. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but I think she's going to go places in her career for sure. So number 9 is a film I just caught up with right at the end of the year, Sing Street. Sing Street is the final film in the quote-unquote music trilogy of John Carney's films, After Once and Begin Again. Now, this film's about a group of kids in the 80s, mostly outcasts, who end up forming a band because the lead singer wanted to impress a very popular girl at school. Sounds crazy, but it's a really great heart, has some great music. Like he wrote, the writer-director wrote a lot of these songs as well. And it's just a fun movie. Love coming-of-age movies that have like this cool style to them, that either have like this crass dialogue or the unfiltered reality of children. Like a lot of people, like a lot of family-friendly coming-of-age movies, all the kids are happy-go-lucky. No, kids fucking swear. I mean, South Park had it right. I mean, kids swear a lot. So this kind of film really spoke to me in that way, and I loved everything about it. It was a really fun film, and I'm glad I got a hold of it before the end of the year, because it's definitely a reason why it was on my list. I remember telling Brandon when we started this show in April of this past year that I wanted to put this film at that point in time, 4 months in, was my number 1 film of the year. I wanted to put it at number 1. I don't know where it's going to go over time. I definitely loved it. I'd say it's his newest film, but it's definitely not. Midnight Special. Jeff Nichols, known for Take Shelter, Shotgun Stories, Mud, and now Loving. Well, his first film of this year was the sci-fi film with Michael Shannon as the lead, Joel Edgerton as his brother, and they're trying to protect his son that is a powered individual. And you may have seen the trailers for this. It was very underviewed. And I wish more people saw this. It was like a low stakes sci-fi, like chase movie essentially. I talked to August, who was formerly of Not Quite Hollywood, and Brandon when we went to see it together, that I would like to imagine myself making films like this, like lower budget sci-fi films. I love sci-fi. I just think that a lot of elements of sci-fi that frustrate me the most are the lack of compelling characters or story plots that are integral to humans. Sci-fi tends to get lost in the weeds and not relate it to the audience watching the film, but also the fact that they rely so much on special effects that it's so frustrating. And this is very refreshing in that sense because it's very low-key, it doesn't have a lot of special effects, but when they're there, they're done well, and they make sense in the story. They're not just like, let's throw a CGI character because he has to throw this guy through a building. Like, the more the practical, the better. In my mind, this is like the way I have to go. Number 7 is a film that I did not expect to have on my list at all. It was interesting, but I didn't know what to make of it at first upon viewing the trailer. It is the newest film by Tom Ford, Nocturnal Animals. Now, with Nocturnal Animals, Amy Adams, her second film of the year, She is phenomenal. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal is amazing. Michael Shannon, Aaron Taylor Johnson. I mean, all these great actors come together and make this film. Holy shit, man. One of the most bizarre yet effective openings I've ever seen for a film. It's almost a parody of Hollywood art, like this modern day, like snooty, chic art. You know what I mean? It just feels really indicative of that highfalutin type of living. It just really, it's weird and demeaning. And as a person who is normal, I think it was really bizarre to see this kind of opening. The film's really cool. It plays out like 3 different plots at once. So you have Amy Adams. She has a rocky relationship with her husband, Armie Hammer. She gets this draft of the novel her ex-husband, Jake Gyllenhaal, wrote. And so it goes into between her life in the present, her life with him leading up to the relationship, and then of course after. And this scenario of the story of the novel she's reading, it's her interpretation of this story. And it's really interesting how they jump back and forth between the 3 of them. Amy Adams is dynamite. She's in bed at some scene reading this novel, and because of the way it's cut and the edit and the timing of the cut, it is so heart-wrenching to see her reaction. Like it's ridiculous. I didn't think I'd ever be excited to see somebody in bed that's reading a novel. I mean, it's really interesting, really compelling stuff. And Tom Ford, man, really looking forward to seeing what he does next. Number 6 is one of my favorite performances from Jeff Bridges, one of my favorite performances from Chris Pine, and the always amazing Ben Foster. It is the release Hell or High Water. It is essentially a modern day Western, but it's like a robbery film, like a heist movie. It's kind of that way. But I mean, it's like those genres always frustrate me because yes, there's a lot of similarities between Heat and Hell or High Water if you're really trying to piece together the basic premise. Oh, they steal money. But, it's about these 2 brothers who steal money from this Midland bank chain in Texas. This bank has kind of screwed over their mother, who had recently passed. They're trying to take the money from the bank that stole their house to pay them back. So they rob a series of Midland Bank branches in Texas, and a sheriff and his partner get on the case, and that's Jeff Bridges and his partner. And there's a great amount of not only chemistry between the 2 pairs, Chris Pine and Ben Foster, and Jeff Bridges and his partner Gil Birmingham, who steals as many scenes as he can against even the might of Bridges. A lot of social commentary about bank lending and poverty and the working class, and the Texas scenery really is a great visualization of the barren wasteland we find ourselves in that regard. So it's a really cool background for this kind of film. It's really great. I recommend it highly. Number 5 is the first animated film on this list, and spoilers, the only animated film on this list. I liked Finding Dory fine. Zootopia was okay. Cool messages for all of these films, but I think they were kind of overrated. The one that was highly underrated and did not make enough money is the Laika release, Kubo and the Two Strings. With every film they make, their stop motion animation is like somehow improving. Like every film they've done is gorgeous, yet their fluidity, their set design, their character design, and their models, everything is just better every time. And Kubo is no exception. I mean, this film, I remember I mentioned earlier with CGI, special effects for sci-fi, this film seamlessly integrates that stuff into the stop motion. And you can't tell what's real, what's fake. I mean, much like Lego Movie, you thought that Lego Movie was all real Legos and stop motion. It was all computer generated, but you didn't know because it looked realistic enough. Kubo is a film that I hope people will come back to, and it'll be a cult favorite. I'm really disappointed it didn't make enough money. I mean, it is the 4th release from Laika after Coraline, Paranorman, and of course, the Box Trolls. A lot of people didn't see the Box Trolls I've talked to. And it's too bad. These films are just beautiful. They have great themes. This film actually is more of an adult story than it is a kid story. Honestly, I saw a few kids there and I didn't know why they were there. I mean, I think there's like a animated film of the week kind of vibe for some families, which is fine. It wasn't necessarily not for kids. It just felt more of like an adult themed movie. If they went full adult and did like a rated R, but not just blood and guts and nudity, but like a rated R, like mature themed film, I think they would kill. They would do really well. Maybe that's where they have to go, because every film had been also dark enough in tone for children's films, and this is definitely the most mature, and not in the negative way. A lot of the films on this list are very personal. There are films that tie into my battle with cancer. There are films that tie in with my dreams and my desires and my fears. And number 4 is a film that delves into my fears. It is the second film from Mike Birbiglia, Don't Think Twice. Don't Think Twice is about an improv troupe named The Commune in New York City. Mike Birbiglia is in there, Keegan-Michael Key, Gillian Jacobs. I mean, they're all in this great cast that when Weekend Live's recruiters come to their shows, you watch like everybody kind of like perk up. All the people in the commune are perking up like, oh, this is our chance to make it on Weekend Live. And they're always watching the show and making fun of it. Like, was it ever really good? You know, was it as funny as it was back then, or was it ever good at all? In the most recent time, this recruiter comes by, Keegan-Michael Key does his characters and gets on the show. And it's about everybody else in the film struggling with that reality. Some people don't make it. A lot of people don't make it. And if you or your friends are successful, how does that affect everyone else? I mean, how do they react to that? They're happy for you, but there's jealousy, there's envy, there's probably rage. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in these people's minds. And not only that, but they're dealing with, well, what now? Like one person decides to write a book, or one person decides to write this. You know, like there's different things you could do, but in the end, your dream didn't happen. So what now? This was a response to Mike Birbiglia's first film, Sleepwalk With Me, which is like essentially based on true events. I mean, his name's like Mike Birbiglia or Mark Birbiglia. So anyway, he plays this comedian trying to make it big, and that's his real story. I mean, he has a sleeping disorder where he acts out his dreams in REM sleep. And so that film was in his own story about success, but that's not what he was trying to portray. So people were like, oh, I became a comedian because of you. I'm like, no, that's not what it was about. So he made a film about failure, which is important for anybody creative to watch. I think that's really something you want to look into. So granted, of course, again, this is why I love this movie so much, because it spoke to me in a creative sense because I was moving out here in LA. So there was a reason for me to watch this and really prepare for the worst. Who knows what's going to happen here? But that's why I wanted to watch it, and that's why I loved it. My number 3 film is a very recent addition. I've been looking forward to this film on this channel, We Need Movies, on our show since the trailer came out, I think, in May. It is the new J.A. Bayona release, A Monster Calls. It was supposed to come out in October, got pushed back for award season, but A Monster Calls is a great film about this boy trying to accept his mother's cancer, and she's probably going to die. He has to deal with that, and he gets bullied at school, and his grandmother, they don't get along, like Sigourney Weaver. He takes out his aggression by calling upon this monster, played by Liam Neeson. And this film is really cool. It's based on a novel, and it's just such a great film. Really sad but powerful film. It's good to have that kind of thing to release your tension, to have some kind of outlet, and I think that's what was the message here about accepting and venting. Definitely Felicity Jones's best film. Definitely. My number 2 is another film about inspiration, dreams, and that kind of stuff. People would assume that it was going to be my number 1 film, people that know me, but I decided to put it on 2, and I'll explain why later. But that is the newest release by Damien Chazelle, La La Land. La La Land has a lot of great inside jokes in living in LA, that when I saw it, it was like, oh my god, I get these jokes now. I wouldn't have laughed at these weird points, but the editing, the timing, the traffic, it's really funny in the way they use it. I couldn't believe that I liked a musical, and I have to buy on Blu-ray. I have to. It is a necessity in my life. La La Land is about dreams in a way that no film had ever been before. And especially since I moved to LA, it was very, very vocal to me in my personal taste. Even the line from City of Stars, are you shining just for me? Like, you feel like this city is here just for you. Even though you know you're one of the thousands, tens of thousands of people that move here every year that try, probably more, that try to make it in Hollywood. So one of my favorite lines from any movie, any song ever, is from this film, from the song The Audition. So she talks about her aunt who used to live in Paris, and she tells us about her stories abroad. Here's to the ones who dream, foolish as they may seem. Here's to the hearts that ache. Here's to the mess we make. I mean, this is the shit I'm dealing with now, and it really captured me in a sense. The favorite line ever is, she lives in her liquor and died with the flicker, I'll always remember the flame. Holy shitballs, that's just fucking power right there. I love that line. But La La Land is a great film because it does pull at your heartstrings. Great chemistry. Again, Ryan Gosling can apparently act with anyone. And that's why I was going to put it my number one. I loved it so much. I've seen it twice now. Fantastic. My number one film, though, is one that I think that will last longer in my mind. And that is the other Amy Adams movie of this year, Arrival. I did not think I'd like Arrival this much either. Denis Villeneuve, who had been killing it in every film he's ever done, did this really like big budget sci-fi film. I was like, holy shit, really? That's not going to make any sense. That's not going to work. Well, now I really look forward to Blade Runner 2049. Hashtag August was right. Arrival is a heady sci-fi film. It's more, this is going to be a terrible comparison. It's more Contact than it is Independence Day. And I think Arrival is going to be one of those films that are looked at highly. The messaging is really great about getting together, working together to solve this problem as a world. Interactions with aliens are very fascinating, and they're mostly just talking linguistics, and somehow that's more interesting than this was powerful. And Jeremy Renner, Amy Adams, Forrest Whitaker, they're all great. I love some conceits of this film. I don't want to spoil it even now because a lot of people still haven't seen it. But there are some very tried and true sci-fi elements that I enjoy that are in this film. If I mention the mere words of them, it will give it away. So I'm not. But Arrival is my number one film. I gave it like a 5 out of 5. It's great. I loved it. That is my top 10 list. If you have formulated your own top 10, please let us know what it is in the comments below. Brandon and I would really love to see it. His video will be up around the same time this one will be. We have a Twitter account, very simply, We Need Movies. Super easy to find us. We will be using that more often. And we are, of course, on Facebook, facebook.com/We Need Movies. And we each have our own Twitter. I'm Guy on a Wire, very simple, it's exactly how it sounds. Brandon is Brandon Doyen, Doyen. So give us a shout out in there as well. And I'm Jamie, and we need movies.